Welcome all to the World Business Angel Investors Week 2021. Welcome to the China session. I'm Mariana, your host for today and the country chair for China for this year's World Business Angel Investors Week, as well as our WBAF Senator for China. The World Business Angel Investors Week is a great platform from which to campaign for solutions to critical issues and other worldwide concerns at the United Nations, the European Union, and in G20 countries and regional and local economies. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, business transformation was a concern of big companies. But now it's imperative, and not just for large enterprises. Even the smallest companies and organizations must transform their business as a matter of urgency in order to cope with dynamics of the post-pandemic business environment. Surveys have revealed that most small companies and entrepreneurs in the startup economy are suffering financially. Their situation will become even more serious if they have not been able to complete their business transformation before the new norm sets in. Given this situation, the World Business Angels Investment Forum invites policymakers to develop smart policies that will provide financial support to startups, scale-ups, SMEs, and all entrepreneurs to help them transform their business. WBAF believes that most public-private enterprises should be mobilized for this purpose, and governmental recovery plans need to include financial support for entrepreneurs' business transformation efforts. On behalf of WBAF, I would like to thank all the stakeholders and partners who are contributing to this year's World Business Angel Investors Week. Our combined efforts will create value for the world's startup economies, not only during this week, but in the future as well. We will focus on harnessing the collective knowledge of the world's most influential women leaders, policymakers, entrepreneurs, and artists with a view to addressing critical issues of early-stage equity markets in the new norm. In China, innovation is a key priority for our country's development. As emphasized in the 14th Five-Year Plan, China will increase investments in innovation and promote the development of scientific research and advanced manufacturing. To foster scientific research, the Chinese government is looking to target cutting-edge fields such as artificial intelligence, quantum information, integrated circuits, life and health, brain science, etc., forward-looking and strategic national science and technology major projects. It will also implement inclusive policies like granting more tax deductions for R&D expenditure, offering tax concessions to new and high-tech enterprises, improving tax concession policies to incentivize technology SMEs to make innovations, enhancing the financial innovation support system, encouraging financial institutions to develop financial technology products, and launching pilots on transforming technological achievements into loan risk compensation. I hope you will all enjoy the World Business Angel Investors Week and benefit from the collaborative ideas, know-how exchange, training programs and workshops, and global networking opportunities that are offered. By working together across borders with a common vision, we are well placed to bring about positive change in the global economy. As a reminder, today's session will be recorded. Due to time difference, our WBAF Executive Chairman, Baybars Altuntas, has recorded a welcoming message for you all. Let's take a couple minutes to meet our chairman, Mr. Altuntas.
Dear presidents, dear ministers, dear distinguished keynote speakers, dear moderators, dear speakers of roundtables, dear participants. Welcome to the World Business Angel Investors Week, and welcome to the Angel Investors flagship events in the world. World Business Angel Investors Week is a great platform where all stakeholders come together to assess their fast-paced journey, to analyze why and how we should leverage angel investment as a must-have financial tool for boosting economies. We are going to retreat how entrepreneurial ecosystems can create more jobs, more wealth, and more social justice in cooperation with key players of early-stage equity markets. During the World Business Angel Investors Week, we are going to create a unique opportunity to showcase fresh and innovative ideas that inspire current and future leaders of the world to take risks on new ideas, collaborate across sectors, and transform world economies through the scaling of entrepreneurship, angel investment, financial inclusion, and innovation. This week-long event is an open platform for connecting, learning, sharing, and exchanging know-how that promotes entrepreneurship and angel investment ecosystems. It's a great platform from which to campaign for solutions to critical issues of early stage equity and capital markets and other worldwide concerns at the United Nations, the European Union, and G20 countries level. As an affiliated partner of the G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion, GPFI, the World Business Angel Investors Investment Forum is proud of organizing all events of the week globally. We are going to have 156 keynote speakers, 138 roundtables, with 325 speakers from 128 countries until next Sunday. 72 countries are celebrating this week until next Sunday. And I'm sure all participants from Europe, Asia, Africa, North America, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and MENA region will find a rewarding experience by joining and following the events until the end of this week. I want to thank so much to all country chairs and continental chairs for their efforts to make all these happen. I want to highlight an important detail of this week. The detail is this week is now celebrated under one global topic: international diplomacy, business diplomacy for international entrepreneurship. Why we wanted to come together under this global topic this year? Mr. COVID alerted all entrepreneurial ecosystem about the importance of business diplomacy for startups, scale-ups, and entrepreneurs and SMEs. We are inviting all governments to consider including more financial support in their recovery plans against COVID-19 for entrepreneurs and for SMEs and for startups, because entrepreneurs of today need more support to be ready for post-pandemic times. Why? Because they are suffering. They are suffering financially. And governments should start immediately considering the importance of financial support for startups, because they are creating new jobs, they are creating new wealth, and they are contributing to social justice. So the WBAF board decided to invite all stakeholders under this global theme and invite all policymakers to take this important issue into consideration. Without financial support, entrepreneurs will not be able to transform their businesses digitally. Business transformation and digital transformation are two key words for entrepreneurs of today. If they cannot succeed, if they cannot achieve transforming their businesses digitally, they are going to suffer more in the future, which means governments will suffer too, because these entrepreneurs will not be able to create more jobs in post-pandemic times. We are going to host 80,000 participants this year from almost all continents, and it is a great pleasure for me to see all global stakeholders of the WBAF came together to really support entrepreneurs and startups. All events this year and always will be free for everybody who want to join our global efforts in this week. I am sure you are going to find a rewarding experience by joining this week's events. And special thanks are going to all country chairs and continental chairs who made all these things happen. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Well, thank you, Mr. Altuntas. Our first keynote speaker is Mr. Raymond Wong, Head of Investment at the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation. Raymond manages the HKSTP Venture Fund and Investor Engagement Departments. He has 25 years of extensive financial services experience in venture capital and private equity investment, portfolio management, merger and acquisition, as well as strategic investment across multiple sectors in the Asia-Pacific region. Prior to HKSTP, Raymond was a principal in HPEF Capital Partners, previously known as HSBC Private Equity Asia, and participated in 3 consecutive Asian funds for 16 years. Prior to HSBC, Raymond held various roles at ABN AMRO Bank, and before that as a software developer at IBM Lab in Canada. Raymond is a member of the Venture Committee, Hong Kong Venture Capital and Private Equity Association, and a director of the Hong Kong Business Angel Network. Please join me in welcoming Raymond. Raymond, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the World Business Angel Investment Forum to invite me. And I'd like to start this presentation with sharing my screen. Mariana, I just want to double check you have seen the full screen.
Yes, this is perfect. Thank you, Raymond.
Great. First of all, I'd like to, the topic of today is the role of Hong Kong in China's entrepreneurial journey. And I'd like to cover the next, this topic in 3 areas. One is the plan for Hong Kong. The second is the role of Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks, the role of it in deploying INT, innovation technology in Hong Kong. And the third is more broadly about the services that we provide. First of all, I'd like to highlight the importance of innovation and technology in Hong Kong. Traditionally, Hong Kong covers 4 sectors as an international financial center: transportation, trade, and dispute resolution services. Now, with China's 14th Five-Year Plan, it added 4 emerging sectors. First is the International Innovation Technology Hub, also as International Aviation, Intellectual Property Trading Center, as well as East-West Center for International Cultural Exchange. With that, there are 2 areas I want to focus on. One is the International Innovation Technology Hub, and the second is International Financial Center that will upplay a lot of opportunities for startups. First, in terms of International Financial Center, Hong Kong is now a 2nd largest global listing venue for biotech firms, thanks to Hong Kong Exchange in launching the Chapter 18A for pre-revenue biotech sectors to list. Second, Hong Kong has been the largest IPO venue for 7 times since 2009. And since 2018, over 50 new economy firms got listed, raising over about Hong Kong $550 billion. With that, there are a lot of startup opportunities for fintech, and also a lot of green finance has developed from here in Hong Kong. Next, in terms of the International Innovation and Technology Hub that Hong Kong is trying to groom into, there are a lot of promotion from the government and from the private sectors. To say a few points, is that Hong Kong government has spent about Hong Kong dollars 130 billion in 8 different sectors, areas to groom innovation and technology in Hong Kong, including infrastructure, talents, legislation, government procurement, R&D, investments, open data, and also grooming the tech culture. A few points I want to highlight is that in terms of the R&D, the amount of R&D in terms of gross GDP on R&D, it will increase about 33% from 2019. And also in terms of number of startups, right now there are about 3,700 startups here, and has increased about 68% from 2017. In terms of the talents being employed in INT sectors from 2019, it has increased about 13% up to now. So you have seen that there is a growing development in terms of innovation and technology, in terms of the number of startups, in terms of number of SMEs being groomed in Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong is actually supporting the growth of the Chinese innovation technology companies by leveraging Hong Kong advantages to expand overseas. A few points to take away is that Hong Kong is a good place to attract high quality tech companies and startups from China to Hong Kong as a leveraging board to go offshore, either to the rest of the world and including to Southeast Asia, which is the closest to Hong Kong. And also we help China-based companies to expand into a lot of international markets. We have an incubator here in Hong Kong, providing all the different incubation services, as well as investment services. And with that, I'd like to zoom in a little bit about Hong Kong Science and Technology Park. Hong Kong Science and Technology Park is where I'm working in right now. I'm the head of investments in Hong Kong Science and Technology Park. And this is a statutory body with a mission to grow innovation and technology in Hong Kong. A snapshot, it runs about 4 million square feet of R&D office and lab spaces here. There are about 1,000 tech companies, enterprises here from 23 countries and region. We have, in terms of the number of people working here, it's about 15,000, of which 10,000 are R&D professionals. And we have grown 3 unicorns here since we have established. And we have also groomed 540 startups with our incubator, and it's award-winning incubator right now. And so far we have groomed over 850 plus graduates, and 80 of them are still in business. Investments, there are about 30 billion Hong Kong dollars raised by all the park companies in the past 3 years. And also there's a fund for every dollar that we invest, there is about $13 for leverage of private capital. Hong Kong Science Park includes a center right in the middle of it in Pak Shek Kok, and also together with the industrial estate, which we are going to rename into Inno Park. Basically using the reindustrialization is the key to go. And also in the north, there's the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation Technology Park right next to Shenzhen. And there's a collaboration with Shenzhen to grow another innovation park there. In terms of the support for INT ecosystem, we provide resources for companies that are freshly from graduates, from university graduates, with ideation to startup companies, to growth companies, and to mature companies, a whole list of different programs catering for their needs. And we are partnering up with over 200 local and international corporations from the private and from the public sector to look into using the technologies being groomed in the companies in Hong Kong Science Park. To name a few, there are some of the healthcare areas that we have built in terms of the lab, in terms of infrastructure, from device innovation hub to biobank, where we can store bio samples, bioinformatic platforms, robotic catalyzing centers, AI plug, And all these are the support that we give to the startups to help them to grow faster, to help them to zoom in to commercialize their products. And we have a program that partner up with many corporates and with a lot of solution proposals and a lot of startups that committed to this program. And we're going to help them to groom them in Hong Kong and bring them out to the rest of the world. As you can see, there are many partners that we are working with. And in terms of fundraising and investment support, as I mentioned, I think Hong Kong Stock Exchange has launched its Chapter 18A, and I think it becomes the world's second largest biotech fundraising center. So there are many companies from China, in particular biotech companies that set up the shops in Hong Kong, and some of them has joined Science Park to do research and development. And I think this is changing, I would say, marking a new trend here that actually helps a lot in terms of growing the early stage investments, because they see this as an exit channel for them. So lowering the risk of the investments by having an exit channel, thereby encouraging there are a lot more biotech investors investing in earlier stage. And just a snapshot of the venture capital firms in Hong Kong. I think this is blossoming in the past few years. From here, you can see a lot of different corporate venture funds from the larger names, local, from China, from international. They are the corporate venture funds, the sector-specific funds. We have some startup studios, incubators. We have family offices who have shown a lot of interest in the past while. And international funds are setting up the Asian investment arm here as well. And a lot of local VCs are blossoming. And with some efforts, we have seen about 10 unicorns being grown in the past while. And here are some examples in different sectors from artificial intelligence, logistics, fintech, hospitality, and entertainment. And we're going to see an ecosystem here because these unicorns are going to help to grow these sectors and help the other startups to grow in these areas. And to wrap up, Science Park Capital team is investing, and these are the services on the left side that we're providing to startups, including the training, consulting, matching, and also transaction support, and also connecting them to the investors that we've shown. And so with this, we provide a very comprehensive investment ecosystem here. Not only do we invest, we also attract investors to come to invest with us, and thus creating a very healthy investment ecosystem. And with that, I wanted to sum up with the last slide is basically positioning Hong Kong as a gateway to GBA, Greater Bay Area. This is the area which is the southern part of China, spanning 9 cities plus Macau and Hong Kong. And with that, there is about over 80 million population. And Hong Kong is the third most innovative location in Global Innovation Index 2019. We have a campus here which is expanding, with plan to expand it into another 5 times of the space. We have right now 4 million square feet of R&D office and space and lab spaces here. And we're heading with the leading technology incubator in Hong Kong. With that, I'd like to wrap up this presentation and thank you again for the forum for inviting me to speak and give an introduction of Hong Kong playing a role in helping the China's entrepreneurial journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your sharing, Raymond. It's so exciting to hear about these initiatives at the HKSTP and the role of Hong Kong, and of course the huge potential that we are seeing at the Greater Bay Area in southern part of China. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more stories about local entrepreneurs, and I'm sure everyone here or would love to hear more updates in due course. On that note, let's meet our second keynote speaker, Mrs. Emily Lampo. Emily is the founder of 8 Shades, a sustainable lifestyle platform, a co-founder of EcoDrive, a charity that focuses on environmental issues, and the managing partner of Impact 28, an impact investing platform. She's a board member of the Nature Conservancy's Asia Pacific Leadership Council. Emily is also very active in women's and community and supportive initiatives. She sits on Harvard Kennedy School's Women Leadership Board, as well as Hong Kong Government's Women's Commission. She's also a member of the Council for Lingnan University in Hong Kong. Without further ado, I'll pass the stage to Emily.
Thank you, Mariana, and thank you for having me here today. I would just like to start by saying it goes without saying that the last 1.5 year has been a very challenging time for everyone. And while the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in not only devastating loss of life, it's also caused a significant disruption to the entire global economy. At the same time, threats to the environment has never been more clear. There's natural disasters like flooding, record heat waves in Europe, and carbon levels that has not been seen in 4 million years. 2020 has definitely capped the warmest decade on record and tied for the warmest year ever. However, if we can take away one thing from COVID-19, it is that it has raised awareness of the importance of building back better, of putting crucial funds towards sustainable economic development. Policymakers and institutions such as the World Bank and International Monetary Foundation have called for more emphasis on environmental sustainability as countries look to recover economically from the pandemic. COVID-19 underscores the link between human health and nature, and the natural ecosystem across the globe are under tremendous stress from human activity and climate change. This is the time to lead more sustainable lives, as has never been more important. With that in mind, I'd like to share my presentation. Mariana, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see the slides.
Okay, so with that in mind, I want to explain how I try to tackle these issues from 3 different angles in the past few years. I started by putting my investor hat on, and I launched an impact investing platform, working with many talented teams to make a positive impact in our world. And the very same year, I co-founded a charity to promote the reduction of single-use plastic here in Hong Kong. And most recently, I launched a sustainable lifestyle platform that aims to promote the awareness of global environmental issues and to encourage everyone to start with small steps towards building a greener world. I truly believe that one way we can all play a role in tackling climate change is to put our dollars to work through investing in sustainability themed investments. And that's why in 2018, I founded Impact 28, which is an investment platform that invested in women founders and startup that has a social or environmental theme. In 2019, the value of sustainability related investment instruments like green bonds reached between 1.2 trillion and 1.3 trillion, according to the UN Conference on Trade and Development, showing tremendous opportunities of pushing for sustainable growth. Here, I'd like to take the chance to share with you a few of our portfolio companies that are creating positive changes to make the world a better place for all of us. First off, there is the Green Monday Group. They take a multi-angle social venture approach to shift the public towards a more green, plant-based lifestyle. The team has built a few brands under their own Green Monday umbrella. First, there is a Green Common. It is a plant-based concept chain that empowers consumer to make suitable food choices. And under their food tech arm, Oni Food, they have developed and commercialized a series of future food products that empowers consumer to eat more sustainably and, most importantly, healthily. The collection of products have been growing in the last few months, from Omni Pork, which is the world's first plant-based pork, to vegan luncheon meat. And now they're expanding to Omni Fish and Omni Seafood, and it's available in 10 countries globally. Second one I would like to bring up is Planera. It is a startup that is producing flushable and biodegradable sanitary napkins. They are the first and only certified flushable pads that is currently on the market. By using the hydraulic actions of your toilet, the pad actually breaks down, so it doesn't end up in landfills or incinerator, which most of the generic pads usually end up. So there's no waste and no microplastic. It is founded by a doctor and an engineer, Liv and Aaron, who they were very frustrated with companies that forcing the responsibility of waste solely onto consumers. And us as consumers, we want to be more eco-conscious, but we also want the solution to be accessible and the option that is readily available to us. Another highlight I would like to bring up is Mogul, which is a global recruitment software platform, which is responsible for supporting the recruitment of diverse individuals and organizations to achieve their goals. This platform uses technology and community to create more opportunities for women. And Mogul's community network has over 30 million users now, and the company has launched initiatives in technology, community, and education to inspire and connect all women of all ages and all races. And the last one I'd like to bring up is Thousand Fells, which is the first circular economy closed-loop sustainable sneaker brand. It is actually the first recyclable sneakers that create absolute zero waste, and it actually creates a solution in the fashion industry that closes the loop. The shoes are made from sustainable material like aloe, coconut, sugarcane, recycled single-use bottles, and natural and recycled rubber. The founders created a pair of shoes that are incredibly comfortable that is made to last, because most of the shoes nowadays in the market actually ends up in the landfill. 300 million odd shoes end up in the landfill each year, and some of the soles of the shoes can actually last up to 1,000 years. And 97% of shoes that we buy today actually gets thrown away and end up in the landfill. So together, I urge you all, we need to change that. This is a very important motto to me. Starting small is very important, and every little bit counts. In 2018, I co-founded EcoDrive, which is a charity organization with an entire women founding team, with a mission to raise awareness and to create behavioral change on reducing single-use plastic here in Hong Kong. With a focus on education, EcoDrive uses its influence and marketing platform to encourage people to use less single-use plastic. We are doing this because we saw the problem here in Hong Kong. 95% of the plastic are not getting recycled. And I want to take this opportunity to emphasize to everyone here that the fact that every single piece of plastic that we've ever used in our lifetime is still here in some form or another, whether in our landfill, the streets, in the ocean, or even in our body when it turns into microplastic and we ingest it along with food that we eat. So at EcoDrive, we focus on 3 pillars. Corporate engagement. We work with corporates to provide practical solutions. There are over 100 major companies that have worked with us and attended our workshops on education and consumer change. And we've organized roundtables with all industry leaders based on their industries. We group them up and we set up expert panels and connect the corporates for a collective action. And we've also produced our own short film, Start Small, Start Now, where we do screenings along with our plastic audits. And on education and community, we regularly hold workshops schools and community groups. We've even published our own textbooks for students that is currently used in primary schools here. And our educational videos for kindergarten students are now used in over 470 schools, reaching over 250,000 students. And they're all given out for free. Most exciting for me is coming soon, where we will have digital guidebooks to further push the agenda of green education. During COVID last year, when we were all stuck at home and schools were closed, and that's when single-use plastic usage has increased tremendously, we saw the urgency to need to continue our work to educate children and educate everyone, but in a more creative way. So we collaborated with Ping Fong, which is the #1 most viewed channel on YouTube. Their original song, Baby Shark, has over 9 billion views. And if there's any parents watching this, I am sure you know the song. So we thought, let's make these eyes and ears count and let's spread this very important message. So together we put a video with Baby Shark and his friends, and it's called No More Single-Use Plastic. In order to widen our reach, we created celebrity campaigns. This year, our Enough Plastic campaign, we worked with two incredible celebrities, Aaron Kwok and Carol Mock. And our previous campaign, we worked with 60 different celebrities and artists, creating a series of very powerful black and white video shot by renowned photographer Wang to encourage a reduction of plastic. The campaign was seen throughout Hong Kong on social media, billboards, advertisement, on big TVs with over 3.3 million video views and 800,000 online engagement. If you give me a second, I would like to play it for you to watch.
無止境嘅浪費。我哋有冇睇到啊？用一次幾分鐘，但係掉咗就等於唔見咗啦嘛？我哋負擔得起咩？我哋嘅地球負擔得起咩？ 我哋嘅下一代咧，當有得揀嘅時候，點解揀睇唔到啊？我哋要揀。
I'm sure for those of you that doesn't even understand Cantonese can feel the impactfulness of the video. So while working on this campaign, I realized the importance of community and collaboration and the real impact that it can make. So I recently founded 8 Shades. I spotted a gap in the Asian market for accessible and approachable sustainability news. Too often, sustainable news is judgmental and it can get quite frightening, potentially putting off people that want to engage in having a more sustainable life. So I envisioned a platform that actually inspired people to take small actions in their lives that result in more meaningful change. While I have to emphasize, yes, it is up to large corporations to stop their greenhouse emissions and engage in more sustainable practices, which comes from policymakers and investors. But I really wanted to build a lighthearted and non-judgmental community that is ready to empower anyone that wants to live a more sustainable life. 8 Shades empower people to make change in their life to become a shade greener. Not one person has all the answers, and I sure don't have all the answers, but we can all become imperfectly sustainable. And it is my hope that we can inspire change in consumers to demand more sustainable goods and services, and for companies to behave more sustainably and ethically. And eventually brands, they will all adapt when their consumers demand it. So I welcome you all to come join our community and be an 8 Shader, and collectively, let's make an impact together. I aim to create content for 8 Shades that is relevant, engaging, and above all, easily digestible. We cover the themes of sustainability, living, beauty, wellness, style, and events to provide a comprehensive view of the sustainability landscape. We want even the most news-averse person to be clued up on how to live a more eco-conscious life and to understand everything that is going around us. Our everyday actions have consequences for the environment. However, this frightening change offers supports to live more sustainably by making just a little small change. Over the summer recently that just passed, 8 Shades launched a campaign called 8 Shades 8-Week Challenge. And for 8 weeks, each week we delivered inspiring content related to that week's themed actionable challenge for our 8 Shaders to sign up and participate. With a sponsored giveaway each week, we encourage our community to share with their friends on social media. And in this challenge, we collaborated with global brands such as Casetify and Everybody and Everyone and Nanoleaf, and supported local startups like Hula, Lano, Coco Paradise, and also supported local farmers by working with the Hong Kong Agriculture Development Association. And through all these platforms I've created and the many partnerships we've done with stakeholders in the business world, in the nonprofit world, and as well with the government, I see the importance of collaboration and the synergies and the impact we can make together. And hence, we are all here today, gathering to support each other throughout this Angel Week. So I look forward to getting connected with you all through the WBAF community, and you'll know where to find me on hshapes.com. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Emily, for sharing your entrepreneurial journey. We can definitely see your passion for the environment and the changes you're making for future generations. We're honored to have you joining today. Our next session will be a roundtable discussion on the future of work. We are delighted to have Mr. Roland Yao to be our moderator for this session. Roland is currently the managing partner of CoCoon Ignite Ventures, an early-stage venture fund focusing on investments in B2B technologies. Prior to establishing CoCoon Ignite Ventures, Roland was with Freshfields, Brockhaus, Devanger International Law Firm, and worked on corporate financing and structuring transactions relating to fundraising, deal structuring, and mergers and acquisitions. I'll pass the stage to Roland to introduce the panelists as well.
Thank you, Mariana. Pleasure to be here. Good morning to some, good afternoon to others. My name is Roland, and I'm very grateful to be here at the World Business Angels Investment Forum, and also, of course, to moderate this roundtable discussion. There is one thing that binds all of us in this roundtable discussion, myself included, which is each of us being the speakers at today's roundtable, are solving for a very important future, and that is the future of work. At our fund, CoCoon Ignite Ventures, we look at the various segments of work in the future and how each segment may be augmented, improved, or even displaced. Of course, all of us have been living under this terrible pandemic, and this has already shown us, the pandemic has already shown us a glimpse of how work is changing and how it will continue to change in the new future. Whether it's from the creation of a new type of job that require a different kind of human workforce with new skills, to focusing on soft skills and mindfulness in the work environment, and not just pure output and hard skills, to even asking a very fundamental question, which is, well, what is work? I have a panel of experts here with us today to address a lot of these thought-provoking topics. We're short on time, so I'll do a very quick introduction and then jump right into it. I'm very grateful to be joined by Lavine Hemlani, founder of Xccelerate. We have Theodore, the founder of MPower, and Lara Wang, the co-founder of Link Resources Asia. My questions will involve you explaining some of what you do. So without going into detail, I'm just going to jump straight into the discussion and off we go. Lavine, I'm going to start with you. So your company Xccelerate reskills and trains learners who are looking to have a career in tech, or at least be able to use technology in their jobs. Well, curiously, how is the market for tech jobs or tech-enabled jobs developing in Hong Kong or all the cities that you're in? So are there more jobs chasing after talents, or more talents creating new positions in companies to help them with the digital transformation? Give us an overview of what you're seeing.
Yeah, fantastic. Hi, everyone. My name is Lavine Hemlani, and I'm the founder and CEO of Xccelerate. I'll just spend like 2 seconds telling you what our company does. And just for that, thank you again, Roland and Theodore and Lara. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. So Xccelerate is an education to employment platform. We are upskilling and reskilling enterprises, individuals, governments, societies at large with the most advanced skills for the future of work. And the mission is really to educate millions of people and inspire them to go make the world a better place. And in the last 4 years since the company started, we've upskilled and reskilled about 25,000 people, predominantly in Asia, in areas like artificial intelligence, like robotics, like IoT, like blockchain, like software, like design, like product management. So everything you think of, including soft skills and project management skills that is required to succeed in the future of work. And our model has always been around transformation, not information. Like, it's not good enough that we just do an online course and some guy forgets it, right? It's really about getting these skills in a way that allows you not to memorize them like a university, but apply them in a fintech startup, or apply them in building your own company, or apply them in getting in a like we saw in the last session, green tech, right? So we've got hundreds of companies on our platform that hire from us, and we're seeing the demand skyrocket every day, especially in cutting edge areas in Hong Kong, but across Asia. So I really believe the world and the tech industry as a whole is bottlenecked by human capital. It's not a technology problem for us to go fight challenges like climate change or breast cancer or lung cancer, or figure out new ways to polymerize new plastics that are biosynthetic and cleaner, for example. It's really a human capital problem. How do we get more people into these industries, get them into really high quality, respectable jobs? And on the flip side, work with governments, like we do a lot of work with governments like in Singapore and Hong Kong and Australia, to go create new jobs. It's not just the supply of new skills, but it's also working with companies to predict, using data and governments using policy, where the future of jobs are going to be, like where the next 10,000 jobs in hydrogen power, or 10,000 jobs in biotech, for example, which has traditionally plagued industries and companies and governments like Hong Kong and Singapore. So human capital is a really, really important equation for us to solve.
And could I go so far, just a quick follow-up on that, Lavine, could I go so far to ask, is it the traditional education system or the infrastructure, are they not preparing this incoming human capital workforce for this future that you're talking about, a very digital, tech-driven, and new industry-driven kind of future? And therefore, you're filling that gap where maybe traditional universities and schooling is not perhaps training or reskilling people to be ready for that kind of a new economy.
Yeah, I look at it as a feedback loop, right? The intention of universities is definitely good, right? But the feedback loop and the speed of which technology is changing is something that universities that might spend a year putting into a new curriculum and getting another year of approvals for a fintech course, it's just too slow, right? That new technology is being changed every hour, every day. So I think for us, we partner with universities and we don't try to make them obsolete. We just try and complement them with the speed of our platform, the speed of our feedback loop to incorporate new technologies. The intent is definitely there. They're very strong when it comes to accreditation, and there's definitely a space for them. But I think one of the key things that we try to do is to invert it, where you go through a 4-year degree and learn theoretical stuff and then get a job and feel completely unprepared for your first job. We want to invert it. So let's reverse engineer the job. Let's reverse engineer the JD using our job board. Let's reverse engineer projects. So it's almost like gamifying. It's almost like making a video game out of it. Like you do a quest, take a 500 data points and make a stock price dashboard out of it. And that's your work. That's your way of learning. It's not to go pass an exam. It's actually to go build stuff, right? And because you've been building stuff the way that you'd be expected to do at one of the best fintech firms in Hong Kong, well, obviously you'll get a job, right? Xccelerate has a 90% placement rate. And so the key thing then is allowing them not to have the domain knowledge, but the ability to learn so they can be completely okay throwing themselves in the deep end to not just survive, but to thrive in any new technology or new landscape that enters.
That was very powerful there, Lavine. The curiosity or willingness to learn. I think that's everyone's superpower.
And translate that into projects. Like here's a
projects.
fintech project, here's a green tech project, here's a biotech project. You actually built something. It wasn't that you passed an exam at the end of the day. You built something and you have a portfolio and a project to prove for it. So fantastic.
Theodore, moving on to you very quickly. You're the founder of MPower. Maybe you can talk about that a bit later. But if I were to summarize, maybe not my best job, but from what you're telling me, you are working on solutions to help workers that you call the non-LinkedIn workers. So people that may not traditionally fit the user and profile of a LinkedIn user. And you're helping these type of workers do more and do better at their jobs. Maybe talk a bit about MPower. What is a non-LinkedIn worker and why are you building a company to help these type of workers?
Thank you very much, Roland. I think, first of all, I think it's very important to recognize that the workforce is really big, and those who are not on LinkedIn is comprised of actually definitely a lot more than, LinkedIn are essentially desktop workers versus a lot of people who are in the service industry and customer facing. And my background is actually in retail. So I have a special interest in this area in terms of helping service-oriented people become more productive and also benefit from using technology. And allow me to explain a little what MPower does. MPower, from my perspective, is actually an IA company, intelligence augmentation company, where we have a special focus in retail, where we help online consumers get personalized product expert advice and assistance anytime, anywhere. In short, a lot of online consumers actually need just-in-time human experts in helping them make certain purchases. And we're here to help connect these online consumers with offline workers. And a lot of them I see in terms of the trends is that it's mobile first. There's much of the work, the highest value added is to be human facing, not to be at the desktop, not to use a computer, but to use a mobile phone to engage customers. And I think this part of this is an essential part for us to help improve, because a lot of workers are actually human facing, and these days the greatest value that we're willing to place is actually having some product expert to provide services. And I guess, for example, one of our customers is a jewelry company. Essentially, their website's great, but they have less than 1% conversion rate, lots of traffic, but people are just looking at things. And obviously, purchasing jewelry is not something that you can just buy online without some form of assurance and trust. So by just placing chat icons on their website and directing the online consumers, or more specifically, hesitant online consumers, connect them to frontline staff. So there's not additional customer service, but just existing frontline staff who are already extremely knowledgeable. They're able to increase the conversion rate to almost 40%. So I think this is very, first of all, from a company's perspective, is very useful. They're able to increase productivity for frontline staff. At the same time, I think it's also about bringing a lot of these frontline facing workers online who use mobile phones as their primary means of connecting with customers, and building up that trust, ensuring that customers are well informed before they make the purchase. I think gives a lot of value to online consumers.
So it sounds like, a couple of years ago when we were reading a lot about the retail apocalypse, and I guess that was referring to e-commerce coming in and dominating. And just now you were mentioning a lot about humans, frontline sales, which I'm hearing is offline people. You seem to take a different view. It's not a retail apocalypse. Is this maybe a retail birth? Because just a bit of context, I would imagine a lot of those frontline staff would be or should be running to Lavine and getting themselves retrained and reskilled to work in Shopify or Shopline, all the e-commerce world. But you seem to take a view that there's still a lot of opportunity in the offline space and empower them with technology. So is it fair to say it's not a retail apocalypse? It's just we have to rethink the way the retail experience offline can happen, or just not just retail, but any services that require a human being or product expert to sell?
I absolutely agree. And I think it's important to actually consider where the greatest value add is. I think these days, with TikTok, with a lot of online entertainment, we can see that people value other human services over, I guess, just talking to a computer. No one likes chatbots, but everyone appreciates as soon as you pick up, pick up the phone, you try to call a service hotline, someone actually picks up. No one enjoys talking to a computer. And I think that's actually where I believe there's greatest value to add. And in terms of the retail sector, I think is one of the least technologically advanced areas. And it's time for the retail sector to also upgrade itself. I mean, obviously there's Amazon, there's Taobao, there's a lot of these amazing marketplaces, but it's about cutting out the human being all the way down to the delivery man, because eventually it'll be drones. But I believe the trend is a bifurcation of the retail market where, I mean, commodities will be sold with minimal human contact, but yet consumers who are looking for experiences, trust, buying things of value, I think they will want to be reassured by humans, and also they will want to hear their advice. So I believe that it's more of a bifurcation of market than a retail apocalypse. I mean, of course, there will be retailers who will not be able to change, and obviously they may not be around. But I think retailers who understand that their greatest value is provide product expert and product expert advice, and also to provide trust to their customers. I think they would naturally see technology as a great way for them to scale in a massive way.
Great, thank you, Theodore. Lara, pleasure to have you here with us. So Lavine earlier said something which I think connects very nicely to what you're doing. You talk a bit more about what your company does, but it's about surviving within a company, you know, surviving in an organization beyond just having hard skills, and how important or maybe how underlooked that area may have been. So there's been a lot of tech-enabled solutions to help companies, of course, manage their affairs and to help their employees do better. Your company is solving similar problems, but you have an emphasis on soft skills and even psychology of an employee. What is your approach to helping these employees, and should more attention be paid, you know, in the future, work to soft skills as opposed to just pure hard skills?
Yes, thank you, Roland. Because our company is dealing with a quite particular client, like we in mainland, and we're only dealing with the banks right now, right? And our client all have a lot of employees. Each bank have at least 40,000 people working, and the majority employees are very, very young, like average age in China working for bank, maybe around 30. So there actually is a quite young thinking mind. And also the bank actually, so in China, we're actually facing a very big transformation in banking industry, because before they just need sitting there waiting for the business. But now they have to really go there and to actively go to try to compete with different companies. So for the employee, we have to quickly change their mind to thinking differently and to very engage. And because majority employee, when they go into bank, they actually think, oh, I get a very easy job. People respect me. I can be simply just sit there, right? They actually got the best student in China to go into the banking industry. But when they go there, they actually want an easy job. But when they go in there, bank have to change the behavior. So our training is, the purpose is not only teaching them to know something, they have to be showing their behavior change. They have to really change their mindset. So we have to developing a training method, which is very much use the gamified way, because we use we have one psychological model. It's called 8-angle psychological model, which each in majority gaming companies, if they developing a very successful game, they have to base on this psychological need of basically human need. Then we're actually developing a gamified training, like each step, maybe it's only 10 minutes training, but they have to achieve something and do testing and compete with others. And more important is our training have to combine with their internal career path. So you have to achieve this, and then you have to do something, and then later you get a chance to really progress in your career. So people have a motivation really do it. And also, I don't know, you know or not, because China has a very strong, recently have a very strong regulation about killing all the K-12 companies. You know that, right? So right now, the K-12 company are so good at the AI training, right? So the online coaching. So we actually recently just, we are a consulting company, like a B2B style consulting company. We suddenly get so many excellent talent just from the industry of the best training, online technology kind of very skilled talent come to work for us. So we actually try very hard to developing our AI training, making everything feels more fun and feels fundamentally driving them to change their mindset.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, just to imagine, you know, saying to a banker, or even when I used to work as a lawyer, you know, it's a really fun job. You can gamify the process and then kind of work through your progression in the company. That was an unheard of idea. So I agree. It's very, very important to keep people incentivized. Just now you talked a bit about some policies in China for K-12. I also read that the 9 to 6 or the 996, basically the very tough working hours in that culture, there seems to be discussions around changing it or removing it. Is the general trend, therefore, that people recognize that culture and working in these kind of large organizations is very draining, is not much purpose, and so everyone is trying to figure out a way to address that incentive and motivation question, which is what you're talking about?
First of all, living in China is everybody feel very stressful because the entire atmosphere is you have to making money and quickly making money. So the 996 to us is a very much a reality. Just nearly every, especially technology company, is all the good ones, they all work in 996, right? So now it's illegal to do. We can't, as a company, you can't do 996. And recently, so many different rules, very strong rules. Like we also say so many companies, like education companies, target to the K-12 all just bankrupt. Even the big, public companies, like it's really big guys, is all really just 3 days, really just a bankrupt.
Got it.
A lot change.
Yeah. I'm conscious of time, and you know, what I want to highlight here in this panel really is each of you are doing something absolutely incredible and very relevant to future work. Lavine, you know, you're preparing the human capital, preparing the workforce, the human capital to be ready, you know, for this future, new industries, adapting new industries. Theodore, you're thinking about augmenting the worker themselves. What does it mean to be a frontline staff or someone that may not have an institutional support like a bank to do their business? What type of technologies can assist them in feeling at least a sense of purpose and belonging in doing what they're doing? And Lara, the incentive, the purpose of being in these large corporations and not feeling that you're lost in the mix. You're just one of 50,000 people, and therefore not have that mentality of progression, and you're trying to address that. I think it's very powerful. Where I want to close off here, I did not prepare you guys for this on purpose because I have 5 quick fire questions. The game is quite fun. It's just basically A/B answer. I've got 5 topics. It all relates to the future of work. These topics have been discussed in the media. People have talked about them. Hopefully, it will leave the audience today with some, you know, thought-provoking ideas. So I'm just going to run through, these 5 quick fire questions. I'm going to go one by one. Lavine, I'm just going to start with you first. And then with the second question, I'll do the reverse order. So all you got to do is give me the kind of 2-word answer. So the first topic I have is universal basic income, the one that we all love. So for everyone, good idea, bad idea? That's the question. Lavine?
Mixed.
Mixed. Theodore?
Balance.
I think it's a great idea.
Great idea. And Lara?
Work for some people, but you need some other incentives. Sorry. Yeah.
Bad idea. Mixed. Great idea. Bad idea. It looks like, Mariana, we're going to need another roundtable at some point to really discuss this concept of universal basic income. Okay, second question, which is somewhat related. A tax on technology or a technology tax, whatever you want to call that. Let's reverse the order now. Lara, do you think it's needed or not needed? Should we be taxing technologies?
Needed.
Okay. Theodore?
No tax on technology.
Lavine?
Mixed again. You should tax certain pieces and you should not. I realize I'm not giving you very good answers.
No, you're all giving great answers. This is informing us for the next couple of panels. So for everyone watching and seeing this recording, there's a lot more topics about the future work that will come. Okay, question number 3, again, back to Lavine. Back to work or work from home?
Lavine, I was
back to work.
Back to work. Theodore?
But flexibility. Sorry,
Right.
I should keep it to one answer. I don't know why I'm saying
That's all right. This is the fun of it.
No, it's just like there's like edge cases. Like you can say it, but like generalizations and abstractions are never truly accurate when you look at it from like a philosophical standpoint.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a lawyer. I totally get where you mean. I'm purposely extracting and generalizing.
Work in an office is great, but like have flexibility, right?
Yeah, what do you think?
I think it's about work anywhere.
Anytime,
anywhere.
Back to work, work from home.
I think go to work. People need friends.
All right. Okay, final 2. Lara, do you believe in small teams or large teams?
Small teams.
Oh, Theodore?
Absolutely small teams, very small teams.
Very small teams. Lavine?
Jeff Bezos had the 2 pizza rule. So 14 people max to a team, and then they're self-operating, and CEO and leadership is hands-off. You guys do what you have to. I'm just telling you where to go.
Wow, my job is done. I got one thing that we all agree that you all agree on, small teams. And the last and final one, this one just for fun, speaker mind. I just put it in there. Lavine, Zoom or Microsoft Teams?
Zoom.
Theodore?
Oh, I don't know. I guess Zoom.
All right. And Lara?
Definitely Zoom.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad we're all on Zoom here today. And that wraps up this hopefully thought-provoking session about the future of work. As you know, the quick fire question shows, there's a lot more thought-provoking things and questions we need to ask and discuss. Very much the spirit of this forum. It's about sharing the ideas, collaborating. All of us need to come together and solve all these segments of the problem. And so thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lavine, Theodore, Lara, for sharing your thoughts, your ideas, what your company does. All the best in your future endeavors. It's super important what everyone's doing. And hopefully, if my fund can participate in any way to support your great mission, I'd love to be there also. And of course, finally, thank you, Mariana, for giving us the opportunity for this roundtable.
Thank you, Roland. Thank you
very much.
All the panelists for a fascinating conversation. I think we all got some new ideas about this, the AI robotic years ahead and how to prepare ourselves. And of course, as we can touch upon on the education and training part as well for the younger generations. While we think about today versus future, let's jump into our last but not least session for today is more of a global holistic view on East versus West. We are honored to have Mr. Anson Bailey, Head of Consumer and Retail of Asia Pacific and Head of Technology, Media and Telecom of Hong Kong at KPMG as our moderator for this fireside chat. Anson has been active in driving a number of thought leadership reports and executive briefings for senior executives covering innovation and consumers in China and across Asia. I will pass the stage to Anson to introduce our Fireside Chat guest speaker, Mr. Kent Ho.
Okay, great. Hey, Mariana, can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Fantastic. Great. Well, listen, great to be with everyone. And I notice you've got my friends Roland's there. You've got Lavine. I was actually in a session with Lavine yesterday. So
hello again.
lots of cool people. It's interesting, East versus West. Now, just for clarity, I'm the Chinese guy. This guy here next to me is the American guy. He's the born and raised in Kentucky. Is that right, Kent?
Born in Kentucky.
Born in Kentucky. But Mariana, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us, to have this last session. It really is a pleasure to be with everybody and to share some of our thoughts. What we're going to do in the next half an hour is we're just going to have a friendly chit chat. I'm obviously going to ask Kent a few different questions, give him a hard time. No, I'm not going to give you a hard time. Don't worry. It's going to be easy. It's going to
give you a hard time.
Okay, you're going to give me a hard time. And we're going to touch on, lots of different things. Kent Ho, founder, general partner at S28 Capital. I think it's fair to say that Kent's been a venture investor for quite a long time, even though you look very young, of course, Kent. I think you consider yourself as a fund entrepreneur. You've been, I think, investing straight out of business school, right? You've been doing various investments. How many companies have you invested in, by the way?
I think between the firms that I've been involved with, we've invested over 70.
Wow.
70 or 80 companies.
Wow.
And I've also done a bunch of angel investing over the years. So there's a lot of different things that I've seen and hopefully learned a thing or two along the way.
Good. Well, we're going to touch on that a little bit later on. And you've invested in various stages. You've various geographies, right?
A little bit.
How about the sectors? Any particular sectors that you like?
I generally consider myself a generalist investor.
A generalist.
So I've kind of touched on everything throughout my career, everything from EV infrastructure, software, big data, gaming, e-commerce. More recently, have been spending much more time around enterprise SaaS and enterprise infrastructure. So those are kind of the key areas. And then in terms of investing stage, have also done everything from concept all the way up to early growth stage. And where we do most of our investing now is seed or early growth stage. And then I've done a tiny bit of international investing too, predominantly in Korea.
Okay, that's in Korea.
Yes.
Okay. How about China?
I have spent time in China, but I have not done any investments in China. But I would say historically, the most of what I've done has been backing, again, I grew up in the US and went to Stanford. So have invested in mostly US entrepreneurs or in some cases, entrepreneurs that were in the US and left to different countries to start businesses.
Interesting. Now, by the way, let's just kind of cover off a couple of things. You have a basketball team, a football team.
Warriors.
Sorry, soccer, I should say. Soccer for you.
Warriors.
Warriors.
Warriors for basketball.
Okay.
I've been in the San Francisco ecosystem since before they were successful, and now that they're no longer as hot as they once were, and still a loyal supporter. So that's my basketball team. And unfortunately, I can't say I have a soccer team.
Okay, well, listen, it should be Manchester United. I'm going to have to educate you. And for all the soccer fans out there, we won last night 3-2, very entertaining game. But anyway, let's talk about a couple of other things because, and I also wanted to kind of share, Mariana, we just launched a new paper at KPMG, which was really looking at technology innovation hubs. And looking at them around the world. And we have been doing this now for several years, and we've been looking at cities that are seen as leading technology innovation hubs over the next 4 years. And I think one of the interesting things is that out of the top 10, 6 of them are here in Asia. So no surprise, Singapore is down there. In fact, Singapore's in the number 1 position. Let me just take you through the top 10, because New York, number 2. In joint second place is Tel Aviv as well. No surprise. Beijing, right? Beijing is number 4. London, number 5. Shanghai is number 6. Tokyo, number 7. Bangalore, number 8. Hong Kong, number 9. Austin, number 10, along with Seattle. And that's quite interesting, because I think in the old days, it was all about Silicon Valley, right? I mean, let's be honest. It was really very much about, okay, we've got to go to Silicon Valley. But I think the interesting thing is that, and this is a global paper that we've done with our global team. And I do think the interesting thing that we have seen, of course, is we've seen this movement. Mm-hmm. And of course, one thing that we hear a lot about, ladies and gentlemen, is the US-China trade tensions, right? We hear a lot about that. So we've now got to navigate our investment plans. And I think, as we know, Alibaba and Tencent, absolutely, those unicorns, they've been leading the charge. But of course, we are going to see this next generation of emerging giants. And I think that's where it gets interesting, because, of course, those emerging giants, I think, are going to continue to rise here and across China. Is that something that you're in broad agreement with?
I would say I have very strong support of that statement. I do think you will continue to see exceptional and iconic companies built out of China. Obviously, Tencent and Alibaba have been incredible in terms of building platforms. But as the last few years we've continued to see new companies emerge. And I think China is, again, is unique in the world because it's the economy is so large itself that we've seen incredible value creation in very short amounts of times. And I think, obviously we've all been attuned to, a lot of regulation going on in China, which has, originally, I think a lot of people were concerned or, cautious about how technology is going to continue to innovate and new companies are going to grow. But I think, I've been talking to different people, and if you actually look at the amount of dollars going into early stage funding into China, it has not slowed down. It has continued to ramp up in the early stages, seed, Series A stages. And so I think that, again, is a clear indication that myself, yourself, I believe, and many others believe that there are still going to be great things happening in China.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think a key message for everybody joining us today on the event is, whilst we do hear a lot about those China-US trade tensions, and there are, at the same time, business is business. Innovation is continuing to grow. The US don't have the monopoly on great ideas. We are now seeing the emergence of, as I said, or we're seeing these emerging giants elsewhere globally.
That's right.
And I think the interesting thing as well, Mariana, is those leading innovation hubs today, right? In the old days, it was, all the big Western cities. Today, as I said, this report just came out within the last several weeks. But today, the survey is showing, as I said, there are 6 cities that are here in Asia in terms of that leading, technology innovation hubs. So again, yes, there's lots of rhetoric, there's lots of talk, there's lots of geopolitics, but at the same time, let's look at what's happening on the ground. Equally, let's look at the tech and innovation. Now, obviously you've invested in 70 different companies. What are you looking for? Because, you know, I get lots of knocks on the door and, you know, so I have a great idea, but what next? What should the, you know, these early stage startups, you know, or you know, obviously they're looking at getting investment, seed capital. What are your suggestions to those startups?
Yeah, I think, you know, when we're looking at very, very early stage investing, so seed investing, it could be pre-product or conceptual. There are really only two things to look at, and they're equally important in different ways. One, I would say, is obviously the founder. So you have to have conviction in the founder and belief that he or she can grow and execute and navigate, right? And I think that's where the repetition of having seen so many entrepreneurs over the years, looking at so many companies, I'm not going to get it right every time, but that is again, that's where you have to tune kind of your skill and ability to evaluate. The second factor of it, I think, is really critical, and it's, again, it is a art, but not it is certainly an art and not a science, is understanding your market opportunity. Not simply just a TAM or an addressable market, which is, yes, of course, it is important, but I think almost all founders have this wonderful ability to oversize the TAM of their market. But you need to be building companies that are selling into great opportunities and great markets. And that can mean a lot of things. Yes, size of market is one thing, but like, who are the customers? How do the customers buy? How much do the customers spend? Like, these are all factors that ultimately whittle down into, like, ultimately how big of a company you can build, how fast your company can grow, and how big they can scale. And I think that's what a lot of people understand, because if you really want to build a company at the multi-billion-dollar scale, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue that needs to scale and continue to grow over time. And you're not going to get that kind of growth by selling customers at $10,000, you know, 10,000 are really small customers, unless you are truly a consumer business that can go massive in terms of customer base.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. It's also not rocket science, is it? As you said, two simple areas. Let's make sure the founders know what they're talking about. Right. And equally, do they understand that market opportunity? And interesting enough, Lavine and I were talking, we were literally talking yesterday, and we were talking about the fact that, you know, we've got to be looking at how can we solve a problem as well? Right. Because I think that is, again, of course, important, right? Because there's, like, no, I get lots of knocks on the door saying, "Oh, this is the best solution ever," and I'm like, guys, well, you know,
I think to your point, the important thing is a solution that is a slight improvement doesn't sell. You need something that has to kind of 10x and solve a problem. And so that's kind of, I would say, the framework that we think about it. And the other thing is to, with, you know, the importance of founders, you sometimes get the market wrong. So you are relying on a founder to be able to navigate and say, actually, I chose the wrong market, and pivot. And you can look at a company like Slack, which was acquired for, I think, 25 billion by Microsoft, or sorry, 25 billion by Salesforce. Mm-hmm. That was originally a gaming company. So I think anyone that invested at the seed round was really investing in Stuart Butterfield, not necessarily a messaging company. So again, you're really at the core of it, the people really matter.
Yeah, no, I think that's a key message there, the people. Great stuff. Just moving along, we're seeing a growing number of startups that, you know, looking to raise capital. 2021 has been an interesting year. Obviously, there's been some big numbers that have been bandied around. I was looking at the Global Startup Ecosystem report, mm-hmm. and they were looking at different cities, and they were saying that for them, it was 6 success factors. Mm-hmm. It was performance, it was funding, it was connectivity, it was market reach, knowledge, and talent. Mm-hmm. You've been over in the US, you've looked at what's going on in Silicon Valley. How does China match up in your views?
No, I think China is one of the most competitive ecosystems in the world. And, again, for me, when I look about, emerging economies and communities of entrepreneurship, I think it really comes down to two things. An existing university system is actually very important. And that's more so for probably, obviously, engineering talent, but also I would say like research and that aspect of like entrepreneurship and the foundations of building businesses, but it's also the DNA that comes out of that. The second piece of what's very important in ecosystem, in which I think China certainly has now, is an extremely robust entrepreneurial community that's born from successful companies. And so now that we have the Tencents, the Alibabas, the Baidus, and a host of other companies that have grown on to become very successful, you have that ecosystem of people that have been part of like hyperscaling growth companies that have exited. They understand the entrepreneurial journey and how much work you have to do it, but they can understand the successes if things work out. And you have people willing to kind of take the risk to leave traditional jobs and start new companies. And so that China has all of this. And so they have all of the pieces to it. And again, I think that's why we continue to see China as one of the largest ecosystems for startups and venture capital in the world.
Okay, good point. So I love the point about the DNA, the universities as well. And China has certainly moved up the world rankings. And I particularly like that point about the robust entrepreneurial community, because I do absolutely, I've seen that emerge certainly for the last several years. Now you've spent a large chunk of your life you spent over in the States. Mm-hmm. You even talk American, kind of. Not British.
I can't fake a British accent.
You can't fake a British accent. But one of the things I was going to ask you as well is what can we learn from the West? Because I often think that sometimes we should take a blended mix. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big fan. I think there's some amazing things that we do here across China. But equally, I think there's some really good things that we can learn from the West. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts? Because you grew up in the States, you were educated in the States, your MBA's from Stanford, you're an all-American boy, right? Kind of. But what can we learn from the West?
I would say there are two things that are, I think, come to top of mind. I would say one is taking risk. In the sense of, Asian culture or Asian parents, right? Or it's still, it's not as common for people to kind of leave their jobs and take big risk. And so a part of being an entrepreneur is obviously having to take the leap. And I think that's the hardest part about being an entrepreneur, having an idea. It's easy to come up for an idea, but can you walk away from everything and plunge into something? And so that is something that's very well ingrained, I think, in American entrepreneurialism, and it has been through centuries. The second thing that I think is really important is, obviously Hong Kong is home now, and I spend a lot of time here. It seems that we're always kind of in a hurry. In Asia, right? The pace is a lot faster. It's not saying the pace is not fast in the US, but I think that the key is building companies, and iconic companies takes time. So being an entrepreneur is like patience, right? You have to, things don't get built overnight. And so we see companies that are taking longer to go public. That's like something that the investor community talks a lot about. Oh, I'm investing early stage. How long does it take? But I think what they're not seeing and what they're forgetting and don't recognize is look at all of like the software IPOs in the US. They all start at $10 billion market caps now. And so the scale of companies being built is different than ever before. And so, it's not easy to wait, but patience is a virtue, and it's important.
Good point. Patience is a virtue, ladies and gentlemen. I do agree with you. I think we do tend to be in a hurry. I loved your point about, building of those iconic companies and those, you know, those startups, it takes time. So we have to recognize, and equally that taking the leap. I do think that that's something that we need to recognize. So I think there's some good points there.
Failure is a part of the process.
Yeah, yeah, that's another good point. Failure is part of the process, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, good points, all very good points. I have got lots of questions, but Mariana, let me know if you've got any other questions, or if there are any questions that come up, feel free to reach out to us, okay? What are the sectors that you get most excited about in the startup ecosystem?
Bitcoin? No.
I was gonna say, don't mention
Yes.
Bitcoin.
Actually, I think to be fair, I'm a little bit biased, but for me, I spend most of my time professionally now, again, in enterprise SaaS and enterprise infrastructure. And so I think these two areas, I'll talk about them a little bit, why they're important. And one, again, I think is just that, you know, enterprise SaaS and workflows and the digitization of workflows and productivity and collaboration needs to happen and will continue to happen. And it's happening rapidly. And I think COVID accelerated that. And so there's a lot of companies that I think are going to be still being created that are going to focus on singular kind of issues. They will build very large companies solving different problems. The infrastructure side of, like, I think enterprise software is important and interesting because if you recall, I think it's a year and a half ago now, a little company called Snowflake went public, and really, I think, helped to open everyone's eyes to, you know, cloud infrastructure. And so, yes, cloud, you know, 10 years ago, 2012 is when AWS was launched. Everybody was afraid of the cloud and all corporates were afraid of the cloud, but now everybody is embracing the cloud. It's well accepted. You're probably in the minority if your infrastructure is not in the cloud. The exciting trend, though, is that now that cloud has been accepted and that is the common infrastructure for everybody, it's the application layer that's being built on top of cloud today. And that's where, like, massive opportunities are coming. So now that you have all of the data lakes and data warehouses accessible, you have cross collaboration from different data sets, you're basically starting to see a new layer of innovation and value add being created. And so those are two areas that we're really excited about. We're not looking for new areas. We're diving deeper in because we think we're still at the beginning of like a long bull market for this area. That said, in my personal time, I have been spending a lot of time, and I'll be honest, probably later than others, but I've been spending much more time in the blockchain space. I'll not say Bitcoin, but the blockchain space. And I do think it is, if you haven't spent time there, it is important to spend time there. And there are still many skeptics, of course, but I think just don't read the news and just dive in. And it's actually quite important for us to have that knowledge and insights and understanding for the coming decades.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think that cloud data migration is huge. Mm-hmm. And I remember going back a few years ago where corporates were very, very hesitant about it. But of course now, no big deal, right?
I always say, is it easier to hack an AWS server holding your data, or is it easy for somebody just to target your own company?
Yeah.
Right. Whose security?
Exactly. And I also see, I certainly see the emergence of blockchain and AI. You know, and there's a lot of focus now in that space. Mm-hmm. And of course, blockchain, we're seeing some really interesting blockchain startups across both the fintech world, but also everything around supply chains. Mm-hmm. So I do think that is something we are going to see more and more. Smart cities, you know, I keep hearing a lot of stuff around smart cities. Does that kind of turn you on in terms of because we hear a lot more about digital transformation and of course smart cities. You've got to have the smart buildings, you've got to have the smart IoT, the smart infrastructure, the smart mobility, the smart government services, the smart education, the smart health tech.
It sounds pretty good the way that you say it. And I think we keep waiting for it, and we may be waiting for a lot of it for a while, but I think it's not really because of lack of like innovation and lack of entrepreneurship. I think the innovation is actually there. I think it's more the system. Are we still there? Oops, sorry, technical issues. I asked myself again, I think all the technology and the innovation is there. It's really more the existing infrastructure and the system. I think that creates the friction that slows everything down for smart cities and that type of innovation. That said, if you think about computing platforms, right, I think it's always important to think about technology cycles in terms of what is the technology platform that's coming. For us to make the leap to really, I think, have smart services, smart city, we do need stable infrastructure. And so 5G, when that really comes, is a really critical piece to creating that stability so that the extra layer of data and insights can be created and be accurate.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, isn't it? 5G, that is going to be massive, I think, in the future. And if I look at China today, we are going to be very much 5G enabled. And I go back to Europe and the UK, and we're not quite there on 5G. Are you? How about in the US? Where are we at?
I do know that at least my home internet speed in Hong Kong is at least I think like 700 times faster than what my friends have in San Francisco. So I think there's a crumbling infrastructure problem in obviously many parts of the world. And so that's obviously one of the huge advantages that China, other emerging economies have. We've already seen it play out with, I think, the first generation of mobile, but infrastructure upgrades and the ability to bypass, existing systems is why you'll see an acceleration in fintech and a number of other services.
Yeah, absolutely. You call Hong Kong home now. Mm-hmm. So you've left the US. You're over here. I just wanted to get your thoughts on Hong Kong. I mean, we're seeing some interesting developments. The number of startups has grown. I think the latest count was around 3,800 startups sitting here in Hong Kong. There's, I think, a record high number of businesses that are here in Hong Kong that have, with parent companies in overseas as well as across mainland China. Hong Kong still seems to be a pretty good place for companies to set up and expand their businesses. The startup ecosystem seems to be flourishing. Is that what you see? And
no, again, this is home, and so I spend a little bit of time in the tech ecosystem here. I certainly think there's been a massive acceleration. So I'm very happy to see entrepreneurship become something that's happening in Hong Kong. Although, to be fair, Hong Kong has always been about entrepreneurship. I think what we're talking about is more the next generation of technology-focused entrepreneurs. Hong Kong, I think, is again a fantastic place to do business, a fantastic place to base yourself. I think, what's really critical, though, for Hong Kong, as we continue as a government and we continue to think about technology is obviously kind of the market opportunity. And so while, China is obviously across the border and we're together, I think the work that's being done on the Greater Bay Area is actually very critical. And so there's a lot of work happening happening there, but there needs to be a lot of policy and a lot of things that kind of align the region together to create very strong and tangible opportunities for startups here. But I think we're seeing the beginning of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, just for all of our friends that are joining in from around the world, Greater Bay Area, GBA, it is a very significant marketplace. To give you some idea, Hong Kong, we're what, 7.5 million. For the Greater Bay Area, it's 10x. You know, we're at 75 million across that Greater Bay Area. And if you look at a lot of the reports, and there's a number of recent reports, the Greater Bay Area here in China will become the main Bay Area in the next 2 to 3 years. And if you look at GDP, if you look at the numbers there, I think we are going to see very significant growth. And we're looking at 9 cities, along with the Hong Kong SAR, as well as the Macau special administrative region as well. So that for me is very exciting. And clients, a lot of my clients as well, a lot of those big multinationals, international corporates now, they are increasingly looking at, hey, we need to have a GBA strategy. We've got to have that GBA strategy. Equally, we've got other locations like Hainan. And if you're in that consumer and retail space, then that again, I think presents a massive opportunity. I've got lots of questions, by the way. I've got lots and lots of questions. I was going to ask you about innovation. You know, how important is innovation in your views? You already said that the founders, you know, when you're looking at companies, you're looking at founders, but how about innovation? And is it a mindset, or can we build innovation into our DNA? And is there a difference that you see between businesses back in the US and here in China? You know, who's the more innovative, or, you know, in your views?
I wouldn't say either side, you know, US or here is more innovative, but I would say innovation is a DNA that needs to be ingrained. I find, you know, it's much easier for obviously individuals to be entrepreneurial and to innovate. I think the challenge is more, you know, where we start to talk about corporates. Can you like train it into corporates or ingrain it into corporate philosophy? And I think that's where it's extremely difficult. That's also why, you know, when we invest in startups, you know, a lot of them are going after existing incumbents that are well entrenched, but we usually don't worry about them because I think it's been proven, you know, through different cycles that it's a natural process of creative destruction, right? And so, you know, I think the best corporates, or what will be important for corporates and management teams thinking about, you know, their businesses as large businesses as they evolve, is really, it's about creative destruction, right? Are you willing to make a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain? And so that's something that I think is really important about innovation. And if you need to be able to take risk. And that's why, again, though, there are so many opportunities for startups to come in and disrupt existing ecosystems. I think you can look at the fintech ecosystem as probably the best example.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's interesting because, again, fintech, you know, Hong Kong is one of those international finance hubs. That's not going to change, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly don't see that changing in the foreseeable future. And it's interesting because innovation, this is where I think, you know, the startup ecosystem can really help those big corporations. And the key message there is collaboration. They've got to look at that collaboration, don't they?
Yes, I would say collaboration or adoption.
Yeah.
Because I think corporates are horrible at adoption, horrible at taking risk, horrible at trying. And that may be the end of many of them if they don't do it.
Good point. Good point. I like that. Yeah. And entrepreneurship as well, actually. You know, one of the things that I'm seeing more and more is, you know, corporates now realize that they do need to coexist. with the startup ecosystem. I think that's a very, very key message for everybody. Great stuff. And then I was also just going to share with everybody, one of the things that we're also seeing is those consumer trends. You know, I look at tech and innovation, but I also look at things like consumer and retail, and we look at platform businesses. And that is something, again, that I think very excited about, because again, if we look at Alibaba, we look at Tencent, they help to kind of birth this next generation of platforms. And then now we're seeing a lot more of these platforms emerge. And COVID-19 has really accelerated digitization. It's also accelerated those platforms, without a doubt. And I think, again, for everybody that's joining us today, just to give you some idea, I spent the last few years talking about millennial consumers. Now, just for the record, I consider myself post-millennial, right? I'm just post-millennial, but there are 300 million millennial consumers in China. Now, I have a teenage son. I know you'll find that hard to believe. 16 years old. He's a Gen Z, right? You'll get to, you know, you've got little.
I'm a millennial.
Yeah, you're a little millennial. But you'll get to know about the Gen Zs. Those Gen Z consumers, they're in a further 300 million in China. And that's why equally I'm very excited in terms of those Gen Z consumers are so digitally and tech savvy. I mean, they were born, you know, they were born with this, right? They, you know, my son, you know, if I was to take this away from him, be a meltdown. So the interesting thing, I think, for all of us, and that's why I think for China in particular, I do get excited in the fact that there are 300 million millennials, and coming down the road, there's another 300 million Gen Zs. And then we look at ASEAN as well. Those numbers are very significant. Last year, if we look at internet adoption, even in ASEAN, there were 50 million new online users. So I think that's going to be very interesting. Any tips in working and dealing with the next generation of young entrepreneurs?
I wouldn't say it's
young millennials, young Gen Zs.
Dealing with, I would say it's more about embracing and preparing for. I think said simply, I think, you know, a lot of people, you know, probably, you know, worry or complain that we don't understand Gen Z and the consumers and kind of the mindsets. But I think, again, that's just natural kind of evolution. I think the more important question that we should all be asking ourselves are, what are the products and services that are going to serve the Gen Z? Because whatever we have today is not that.
Good point. What are those products and services, ladies and gentlemen? And again, I think that's where I'm optimistic about the future. Despite everything that we hear of COVID-19, and it you know, that has been a big issue, and you know, we're dealing with it, and globally we're still dealing with it right now. But you know, COVID-19, whatever's happened, it certainly accelerated everything digitally. I think it has been a case that we do now need to innovate. You know, and again, a key message I think for everyone is innovate or die. That's the reality we have to take. You said yourself, we have to embrace that change. You know, we've got to embrace that change. We have to embrace that startup ecosystem. And, you know, we have to, I think, equally accept that whilst we absolutely did have a big base in the West, and I look at Silicon Valley, we've also got to accept there are new kids on the block, right? And China is part of that, right? And if we look at the future, we've also got to accept that, hey, business there are going to be some really, I think, interesting developments. I already mentioned right at the beginning of this session, Mariana, the tech and innovation hubs are now here, right? There's been this paradigm shift, and we've seen them move over to Asia as well. The consumer base is here in Asia today as well, right? Those millennial consumers, those Gen Z consumers. So again, the writing is on the wall. You know, it's not a question of East versus West. You know, we have still got to work together. We've got to collaborate. We can learn, right? That blended mix that I mentioned earlier on. I think we can learn a lot of great things, you know, from what we've seen in the West, but equally what we are now seeing here in the East, okay? It doesn't have to be adversarial, right? Let's be a little bit more collaborative. Now, lots of people that are joining us today, any messages that you want to share with them? What should we be doing from today onwards after this amazing final session?
Just stay open-minded. Stay open-minded, stay curious.
Stay open-minded.
Always be learning.
Yeah, always be learning. Yeah, and you know what? I think that's a good point, right? Always be learning, and we've also got to accept there's great tech, there's great innovation on all sides. So I think that's a key message. So before we go, predictions for 2022. Do you want to stick your neck out? Do you want to tell us how the future is going to be different? Are you confident?
COVID ends and the world opens up. Hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully. That's my wish. And then, you know, within obviously the technology ecosystem, I have no doubt and am a believer we'll continue to see a lot of great companies continue to be built and go public. And so I know there's a big pipeline of companies getting ready to come out.
Absolutely. And I was going to say that there is a big pipeline of companies. They are going to need support. They're going to need funding. The ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, it's going to need our help. It's going to need entrepreneurs like Kent to do the hand holding, to help provide that seed funding as well. And hopefully it's going to need people like myself at KPMG to support you and grow and develop and go and get that funding and hopefully go and do that successful listing somewhere around the world. But Mariana, I think we're out of time. In fact, I'm pretty sure we are out of time because my clock is red. Mariana, anything else? Did you want to say anything, or have you got any comments or any final thoughts?
I think this is perfect. I mean, thank you both. I think this is really fun, interactive session. I mean, as always, Anson is the best of that. And thank you, Kent, for spending time with us. I think, yes, we are a bit short on time. And this concludes today's agenda and the China section, of course, for this week, the World Business Angel Investors Week. I hope everyone enjoyed this. We talked a lot. We covered the role of Hong Kong, Greater Bay Area. We also talked about sustainability concerns, the future of work, and of course, the last session touched a lot on VC landscape globally and the consumer landscape as well, and all the millennials and Gen Z. So on behalf of WBAF, I'd just like to thank all our speakers for contributing your time and sharing your insights. It's very important that we continue to support each other as a global community. I think especially for the startup world, that ecosystem is key to help to drive innovation changes in this world. As mentioned at the beginning, today's session actually has been recorded, so we'll share the link later. And I look forward to seeing everyone, all of you again next year at the World Business Angel Investors Week 2022. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mariana. Take care, everyone. Stay safe and stay well.